what? So whatever she think, I'm gonna what the what? Shine like Cardi. What the what? Hit from the back. What the what? She got a booty. I'm over there what? Like, baby girl, I want a what? Like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, bro. Fuck. Are you gonna be champion for the future? Jalen Brunson is a champion. This nigga's a champion. Ice. Yo. Manisha, your beat, shebang. All of my eyes in it. Why did they gas me up? Why did they go my head? How you gonna compare me to him? The niggas ain't putting no work. They tell me I came from the dirt. My diamonds, that's the first. I done made a few hits on merch. And I merch, that's why shit I'm feeling. They say trying to take me serious. I done in the previous and never run. Why the fuck wanna argue with me? When you wake up and fall on shit. When you wake up and bitch in the club. When I wake up and off my car. Big rich and rich in my circle. Wait up and bitch, cause I don't really care. I ain't taking it by style niggas. But I was fucked up. How you gonna compare me to him? The niggas ain't putting no work. They tell me I came from the dirt. My diamonds, that's the first. I done made a few hits on merch. And I merch, that's why shit I'm feeling. They say trying to take me serious. I done in the previous and never run. Why the fuck wanna argue with me? When you wake up and fall on shit. When you wake up and bitch in the club. When I wake up and off my car. Big rich in my circle. Wait up and bitch, cause I don't really care. I ain't taking it by style niggas. But I was fucked up. How you gonna compare me to him? The niggas ain't putting no work. They tell me I came from the dirt. My diamonds, that's the first. I done made a few hits on merch. And I merch, that's why shit I'm feeling. They say trying to take me serious. I done in the previous and never run. Why the fuck wanna argue with me? When you wake up and fall on shit. When you wake up and bitch in the club. When I wake up and off my car. Big rich in my circle. Wait up and bitch, cause I don't really care. I ain't taking it by style niggas. But I was fucked up. How you gonna compare me to him? The niggas ain't putting no work. They tell me I came from the dirt. My diamonds, that's the first. I done made a few hits on merch. And I merch, that's why shit I'm feeling. They say trying to take me serious. I done in the previous and never run. Why the fuck wanna argue with me? When you wake up and fall on shit. When you wake up and bitch in the club. When I wake up and off my car. Big rich in my circle. Wait up and bitch, cause I don't really care. I ain't taking it by style niggas. But I was fucked up. How you gonna compare me to him? The niggas ain't putting no work. They tell me I came from the dirt. My diamonds, that's the first. I done made a few hits on merch. And I merch, that's why shit I'm feeling. They say trying to take me serious. I done in the previous and never run. Why the fuck wanna argue with me? When you wake up and fall on shit. When you wake up and bitch in the club. When I wake up and off my car. Big rich in my circle. Wait up and bitch, cause I don't really care. I ain't taking it by style niggas. But I was fucked up. How you gonna compare me to him? The niggas ain't putting no work. They tell me I came from the dirt. My diamonds, that's the first. I done made a few hits on merch. And I merch, that's why shit I'm feeling. They say trying to take me serious. I done in the previous and never run. Why the fuck wanna argue with me? When you wake up and fall on shit. When you wake up and bitch in the club. When I wake up and off my car. Big rich in my circle. Wait up and bitch, cause I don't really care. I ain't taking it by style niggas. But I was fucked up. Get that money in it. That works. Yeah.
Story of Roman Reigns becoming the tribal chief is a pretty interesting one, and it wasn't always exactly the plan in terms of how it got started. Paul Heyman was on the Chris Van Vliet podcast. It's a great episode where they go in depth about a ton of different topics. But the one about Roman Reigns becoming the tribal chief, Paul Heyman joining up with Roman Reigns, is a very interesting story. If we look back at 2020, the kind of trajectory and arc for Roman Reigns himself is an interesting case. Back then, we're dealing with COVID, so everything got shaken up for WWE. If we look back even before 2020, we had Big Dog Roman Reigns, and even as he teamed up with Paul Heyman, he was still Big Dog Roman Reigns. Vince wouldn't let it go. We had years, and we don't need to go in depth too much about this, but we have things like Suffer and Succotash. You have Roman Reigns having to eat dog food, again, that thrown on him. You have the fans for years rejecting the idea of Big Dog Roman Reigns. He's main eventing multiple WrestleManias, being shoved down the fans' throat. If you lived in WWE land during that time period, you know what I'm talking about. about. I never stopped watching WWE. I've gone through the goods and the bads. And Roman Reigns back then, as the big dog, was never my kind of thing, because it really did feel manufactured. Some people might look back and say, hey, no, these matches were great. He did have some very good matches during that period, and even before it was Roman on his own, stuff with him and the Shield, obviously, the Shield versus the Wyatt family. There's some really great stuff in there, but Roman Reigns as a solo act, we got to a point where people were really sick of it. Once we got to 2020 and COVID, Roman Reigns steps away, largely because, and when he takes his time off, this is largely due to him having leukemia and then not wanting to be exposed because we didn't know what was going on in the world. So he was being safe. But if you look back then, and reports and interviews and everything, Roman Reigns was potentially never going to return to WWE. If you look at WrestleMania 36 in 2020, Goldberg, your Universal Champion, isn't it a different era? It's a wild time. Well, Goldberg was your Universal Champion, and the plan was supposed to be Roman Reigns taking on Goldberg. This is when Roman Reigns pulled out of the event, said, no, I'm not showing up, COVID, bad thing. So because Roman's battling leukemia, stepped away, he wasn't at WrestleMania. So with Roman being out of that year's WrestleMania, you had Braun Strowman step in, he took on Goldberg. Then you got the story of The Fiend, Braun Strowman, the Universal Championship, and that all matters because it leads to Roman Reigns' return. Now, what's interesting in Paul Heyman's interview with Chris Van Vliet is Heyman's comments that the tribal chief may never have happened unless they kind of pushed for it. Vince wanted Roman to remain as the big dog. And it's fascinating to think about if Vince was still in charge, if Vince got his way, that we could have still had big dog Roman Reigns, maybe even to this day, and never got the tribal chief. And what's interesting is that at SummerSlam, when Roman made the return, the surprise return in the main event in the championship match, commentators, the announcers are still calling him, it's big dog Roman Reigns. So they hadn't let it go just yet. Like you can see, like maybe just in the timelines, it was still thinking it was going to be big dog. I personally think that it needed to change. It really did. If they wanted to get this character of the tribal chief over and to work and to feel, as Paul Heyman has described it, as like a brand new character, yes, he evolved, but drop everything and go into this new version, it really had to change in a huge way. He couldn't show up at SummerSlam or Payback and beyond being big dog Roman Reigns, especially when they were trying to concoct all these other elements we'll talk about, where you have Paul Heyman at his side. Then you get the Usos and the Bloodline and Sammy and everything, and how they all interact, treat Roman, and put Roman way above everything else. Even with Roman's return, the media promos, after joining up with Paul Heyman and having the wise man and not the advocate, even Roman Reigns' look had to change. They didn't get the contacts anymore from Roman Reigns. But on the whole piece about the big dog, they have the quotes here for Paul Heyman, what Vince was saying to him when they dropped the idea of let's get rid of this big dog and make him the tribal chief. Quote, the first time that I came up with tribal chief, Vince said, really? You want to call him the tribal chief? And Vince wanted Paul Heyman to be the advocate for Roman Reigns. Heyman says that he can't be his advocate as Brock Lesnar's advocate. We have to do something different. You got to pull the trigger on this. This has to be as much of a seismic shift as the dead man becoming the American badass. I think that's a great analogy to pull because
Action Behavior Centers offers no cost, no wait list ADOS-2 assessments for children 18 months to 6 years. In this play-based evaluation, a trained clinician observes how your child communicates, plays, and interacts. We share a summary with your child's doctor to support their diagnostic process. Get early support. Schedule an ADOS-2 today at actionbehavior.com.
The American Badass character, The Undertaker, was a huge shift from what was created in the 80s and then getting to this point beyond the Attitude Era where Undertaker needed a shifting character and completely transformed, where he cut and promos and he's the American Badass, riding a motorcycle. Even back then, you can find news and reports and everything how Vince wasn't keen on the American Badass character. Obviously, then Undertaker did come back and become regular Undertaker again. But it's an example of something huge needing to change with an extremely established character. And also frames Roman Reigns' ascent as Tribal Chief as a child star, or watching a child star grow up. Quote, he could not have played this persona earlier because he was too young to do it. He needed to weather the storms to become the Tribal Chief. We saw him from his young days fresh out of college, and he grew into this Tribal Chief. Which again, I look back, and I do agree with Paul Heyman, because if you look back at the timeline, we could all sit here and say, man, they should have done Tribal Chief years before, like 2016, 2017, they should have pulled the trigger and done something different with his character. If Tribal Chief Roman Reigns was around during the period when he was fighting Brock a ton, fighting The Undertaker, John Cena, imagine how different it would have been, how much better it would have been. I agree, it would have been way better, but I do understand the point here. He needed to be mature to be able to handle like the weight of the main events, despite that they thrusted him in there and it did not work. He needs that grit. Like Rowan is still young as the Tribal Chief coming in, right? But you can see that he's got the mileage on him. And so I think it does play better into the Tribal Chief character that kind of emerged out of all of this, because Roman had gone through so much. You know, it's like paying your dues. He paid his dues for years up to that point. The inception of the Tribal Chief, Heyman also discusses the film Apocalypse Now, and how there's inspiration there, a blueprint from that, and applying it to Roman Reigns' Tribal Chief character and the island of relevancy. So then you get to SummerSlam 2020, The Fiend versus Braun Strowman, and Roman Reigns does return. And what happened on TV was that Roman showed up on his own, out of nowhere, and attacked everybody. Steel chairs, spears, the whole thing. Roman Reigns was back. And the announcers, like I said earlier, were pointing him out as Big Dog Roman Reigns. But Paul Heyman was not there. According to Heyman in the interview, Vince thought it would be better if Heyman did show up with Roman at SummerSlam, and Heyman, I guess, seemingly pushed back and wanted Roman to have that moment, thought it would be better if he was just on his own for SummerSlam for the return. And just as a sidebar, wouldn't it have been so much more interesting during the beginning of Tribal Chief and Bloodline if we had fans? Like, this is all in COVID era where you got screens. I just really wonder how true fan reaction would have been to get that moment of Roman returning. The huge pop and everything, but then I guess maybe also like confusion and curiosity of like, okay, is he a bad guy now? He's attacking everybody. You'd think that at that point, because he's been off TV for a while, comes back and he's different, he's not in the SWAT gear and all of that, you've got a different character. I think the crowd probably would have gone nuts for it. But we got screens, lots of this, that. So after SummerSlam, Roman's on SmackDown, and this is the big couch reveal of Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns and their alliance. Heyman says that, quote, Vince thought the couch was not opulent enough for a character that was going to end up being called the Tribal Chief. And he says that I can't disagree with him, but we were in a rush to get that done. And with regards to SummerSlam, Heyman says that, quote, let Roman return. Give that moment to the big dog. Heyman's calling him Big Dog still. And then that Friday on television, he's not cooperative in the triple threat, not cooperative with Adam Pearce. Go to him sitting on the couch, and Pearce is looking over going, what the F is Heyman doing there? Pull out because Roman says that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler, and you see Brock Lesnar's advocate sitting with Roman Reigns after all these years. Believe that, and off the air for 5 seconds, you see us together. But I think Roman coming out on his own at SummerSlam was the right move. And I think that Heyman's point about the couch, number one, Vince wanting a better couch, maybe he wanted a table. Maybe he wanted, like, just them to be standing outside. I don't know, but he wanted something like that had a little bit more weight and gravitas to it for the moment. Nowadays, if they did this today, it would have been the Triple H Sucker Era Sledgehammer Cinema, where they film it all like cinematic, which would have been really cool if they did that today. In the shot that we got of Roman and Heyman and Adam Pearce, you do have Adam Pearce just kind of standing there. Like, Heyman's on the couch, he sees him. Now, I thought the moment when you watched it live, it's a big, big deal. But maybe it did linger a little bit too much. When they did pan out, and then you just have the two of them just kind of sitting there. Like, that's great and all, I think it was fine. But I see what Heyman's saying, where you just kind of wanted to, like, just give them that one little moment, and then boom, it goes off the air. The other interesting piece with Heyman's interview and talking about this version of Roman is all of the details. And this I feel like is what has made the bloodline from its inception even to now. It hasn't always been perfect in terms of storytelling and just kind of the on and off of it. Every little thing was calculated and deliberate. At least that's what Heyman says. For example, the microphone pass that Heyman is known to do with Roman Reigns. He says, quote, make me reach across so that at any time if I brush against the tribal chief, it's off with my head. You can't touch the tribal chief. Don't acknowledge me. Wait till I earn it. For the tribal chief to look at you, you have to earn that. He was saying this to Roman Reigns about how we're going to do the microphone handoff. And should even Roman look at Heyman like, give me a microphone, like kind of the regular stuff, or give me the championship. It's Heyman always handing it to him, but he doesn't ever like really touch Roman, and nobody does. Heyman also talks about how they place Roman Reigns above God. If you create that deity above the deity, you firmly establish that's the sun around which everything else orbits. So I like that the memorable moments, segments, I mean, things like Sammy teasing and then hitting Roman Reigns with the steel chair at the Royal Rumble, the friction between Jay and Roman, all the dynamics of the bloodline, the backstage segments, how stuff was framed, how different characters of like Sammy and Heyman or Jay and Paul and Roman and everybody, how they all work together, and you leave little Easter eggs and clues. It did feel like there was a lot of attention to detail. The entrances, the promos, the delivery, where people stood, how they framed stuff on camera, you still see that even right now with what they're doing currently in the Bloodline story. The other thing that struck me though with the Heyman interview and focusing in on Tribal Chief and the Bloodline, there's so much attention to detail, right? With the Bloodline and Roman's character and how Heyman interacts with everybody and them taking cues from different movies and applying everything to this. Why don't they do that with more in WWE?
I'm really trying to improve my flexibility this year, so I asked ChatGPT.
So what are your big three emojis?
I think the sparkles, the baby eyes, and the castle.
What does the castle mean?
We cannot spell the word.
We're at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, here at Bobby Marks, the man who built the, what do I want to say?
I would say a very small part.
A very small part.
Very, very, very small part.
The man who built the Barclays Center. And Vince Boswell.
Brick by brick. I'm just happy they allowed me back in this building, right? I thought I'd safety on the security cameras as far as don't allow this. This is the man who traded the 31st round pick. Still allow this, but I'm happy I'm still allowed in there.
All right, well, the NBA draft for first round's in the books. Hey, guys, I've never been to the first round of the draft before.
Really?
It's my first time ever. I mean, I've been out at team sites or team venues. I've never been to the draft before.
Speaking of the first round, I can't believe we used to do first and second round in one night. This thing would still be going right now.
Oh, God, you have no idea. All right, so Bob, what were your takeaways? There wasn't a lot of surprises in this draft.
My biggest takeaway was there was no first round picks that were traded. Right? There were trades.
There were trades.
There were trades swapping, but there was nobody that came in and be like, I'm going to trade you a 2027 top 5 or whatever protected. And I think so. I think there's two reasons why. I think the lottery reform has scared some teams here, and I think the price to get in. There were teams that were telling me that some of these teams in the teens unprotected first to come get one of these picks here, and I just thought it was too rich. And we saw a lot of swapping, and Memphis basically made a trade and got 5 seconds out of that, but we didn't see a team basically
made 4 trades in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and they saved $3 million out of it. And
that right there is Brockman Aller. That is Brockman. By the way, let me just say as a quick aside, the Knicks have the 31st pick of the draft tomorrow. Brock Aller loves nothing more. He's won 2 rings now with Cleveland and New York, but Brock Aller loves nothing more than trading on that night. And he had to wait a while for that. He made 4 trades in 10 minutes. And he will be in charge of the 31st. He won't be in charge of the 30th pick with that, but he'll be in charge of administering the 31st pick. So anyway, Vince, your takeaways. We were on Hoop Streams for 3.5 hours tonight.
I wasn't keeping count. The interesting thing for me was, did it get interesting for you after the fourth pick? After Caleb Wilson, 5, 6, 7, Clippers, Brooklyn, Sacramento. I wasn't sure. We thought 3 point guards were going in the row. We were not sure of the order of the 3 point guards. And I said during the show, those 2 guys are going to be linked. Yes. Wagler, A-Cup. Yeah.
Round 1.
They're going to be linked with each other for their entire careers. I'm fascinated by Scott Softwell when he has a better.
Yeah, I would think that Sacramento would be declared a winner tonight. We don't know if A-Cup will be the best of those 3, but Sacramento wanted A-Cup. They want A-Cup, and they weren't sure whether he can get to them. Obviously, they trade up for him, but they weren't trade up, and they got their guy. So it's great about it.
Well, I think the big question, at least leading up to the week, I think today you kind of got a little more clarity with Brooklyn guards. And I think you had to. Like, I don't care if you drafted 20 guards last year. If there was a guy, if it was, whether it be Mike Tyson or Houston Clemens here, you pick guards. But Brown is interesting. He probably had the most upside of it, but there were some questions. He had a back injury at Israel this past year. He certainly shut down. There was an overload, but you talked to a lot of the people that were on Team USA last year, during the I think it was the U18 or U19. Like he was like your best player. Yeah. Mixed reaction was there when they announced it. Because I think A-Cup is a popular player. Yeah. People watch A-Cup late up the late season tournament. He's an exciting player. I think some people who wanted A-Cup. But obviously Brown, he's bigger, he's got more positional size, he's got, he's a great shooter, right? Yeah. So there's, it doesn't like it's controversial, but I feel like that's going to be really longer. Yeah. But I will say this, I have several teams in the back of the lottery who are eating me apart. Yeah. What's going on the top? What's going on the top? What's going on the top? What's going on the tip? What's going on the tip? The 5-6 was really something that they were trying to do. There's nothing better than just really a hard play. You're being in a draft room. You got your board, you're set up, and especially with teams that are like in that 12 or 14 stage, waiting, and then you're like, do we need to move up to get him and sit, or we sit pat, or if you're Dallas and Wes Johnson's there at 9, or if you're Oklahoma City who's at 12, you need to move up and thunder, stay pat there. And I think that's a big reason why Memphis moved back from 16 to 21, I believe, because there were probably 5 or 6 guys. And let me speak on that for a second.
Orlando's gone 0-3 from. By Jamal Mosley here. Coach is going to take a few minutes to regroup and go over the strategy.
I want to talk before we get that stuff, let's talk about number 1 pick. Yeah. Because there was some, it felt during the day like the officials coming in that they were going to go with Andrew Lemonster of the Wizards. I don't think that Trae Young thing had anything to do with it. They couldn't sign Trae Young for a while. If they had preferred Peterson number 1, I think they'd go Peterson number 1. Whatever the process and what they were able to do, got them AJ Dembele. They went with AJ Dembele, and that was a massive decision for the Wizards. And maybe they're actually not going to make much difference between them, or maybe it's a organizational decision to change the stadium.
But you mentioned the guard play, top 4 guys, right? I think there's more guys than Caleb. Nobody's talking about Caleb. What I think,
for a while. The group because kind of like if they had to put like 10 or 11 in the lottery under the top four, they didn't have to stress on, they didn't have anywhere near the stress of Washington. Yep. You just played the season's game, and many people, I respect, say that have hesitation. Wilson might be the best player in the draft. And who's that to get that player?
There was a team in the top 10 that had A.J. Devonta number 1 and Caleb Wilson number 2. That team had all the way down. And that was the years of the top 4 that I'd seen of the top 4. I was just really fascinated. Like, one of the two just kind of tricky, like in cold 20 executives yesterday, and I'm not a cold starter. It was half and half. Legitimately half and half.
Some people were like passionate about it. Yeah, it's not even like, boy, get away. Some people were like, it's Peterson. That's the man stuff.
You know what it was? I think the people who were impressed with Peterson one of the biggest skeptics 10 weeks ago. And then you got in front of it. And then you got better intel, and you thought so much better of him that you had to flip the tune. You had to do so almost violently, in a way. Like the people who I knew were not Peterson guys. Well, what's the season? Where's he going? He's not playing. He's making a put him. He's making a put him on this. Those are the ones who come on and said, when the interview is like, left from there, somebody said, if you get a face to a franchise and you're an introvert. And you're telling people that you're an antisocial introvert. And that goes to the personality part of all this. I think it's a little uncomfortable with me. But it was so many questions around it.
Well, and I think one of the moments I remember with Glenn is the emotion. And he didn't, start crying, but there was a genuine happiness when Darren Peterson got drafted. Like, if you had just walked in with a stoic face or had his shoulders down, but there was like, it was almost like it was a relief. Like, this is over.
By the way, did you like the living room? Maybe the culture living room?
I did. Like, I tell you what, if I was in there, I would have probably been thinking, oh, yes.
You know what? They stopped using it at some point. You probably could have gone and used it. Yeah, I've seen Bobby in the 5 o'clock hour the last 2 minutes, and I don't mean PM. Yeah, you're right. So some interesting stuff in the top 10. I feel like, look, you never know on draft night. Plus, Oklahoma City has to feel good about the way things fell. But first off, let me say this. I was involved in May as input. The Mavericks had to do their due diligence. The coach doesn't always think the chief. The number of first Michigan players taken by the Kitty Mason and Noel Jones. A lot of people thought Noel Johnson was very and he actually came to our set on the youth game. And I think he's happy, he got drafted, and he's excited about, the situation.
I think so. So you think that he will look at the
I didn't think he could do last. So that's fascinating. I'd love to know where your rankings were before after they retired. Maybe they'd already decided.
Well, and I think it was interesting because I was wondering if we would have maybe in the Mavericks war room. And I was happy he was here. I really was. I mean,
that was also surreal.
Yeah, I was standing there with Jerry Lewis, and I'm looking, and I just see him start walking, and I said, well, I guess he's not in Dallas right now. He's going to watch 3 of those guys going out to the team. This is awesome for Michigan. Yeah, that's pretty good. Great recruiting state.
If only they had their head up, Bill.
So I have to feel like the way things fell, the Thunder probably really wanted Mara. Might be considered moving up for him. They don't have to. Yep. He falls to them.
Signing up to the level of George Ash is fast. So you might need to earn more cash.
Robinson's checked in from alone.
He came onto our set, and I asked him, and he totally understood the situation with Victor Wembanyama. He's like, yep. He's Spanish. He's playing with the national team for the He will. Yeah. And he's like, yep, I think I'm going to keep it for a lot. He talked about maybe playing the check.
And Bowser throws it down.
Are still fielding trade offers on Jalen Brown in the aftermath of their inability to trade in for Milwaukee for Young. As I mentioned, after we won the belt last night, the our team was that team was asked if Jalen Brown can be on the team next season, and here's what he said.
Takes a step back.
Jalen Brown's a big part of this.
I'm not gonna,
I'm never going to predict the future, but like every indication, everything that I think about is that over the past few years has been building around those guys. The one thing I want to make very clear is how valued has always been to be in a great relationship and an open relationship. Where we talk about everything. The future is that, I look at it as this is our team. This is our team. That's what he said. Big Bird, what do you say?
He lied to me. He lied to me. Like, let's just say, then in those papers. Because this relationship is over. There's no coming back to this. How many times is Brad Stevens in the Boston Celtics going to give Jalen Brown a hug with a knife in his face, behind his back? This is the second time. This is the second time that they tried to press together. And if I'm Jalen Brown, I'm going to lie about it. I won't lie about it. I don't feel appreciated. And you know, a lot of fans do with them, wanting to talk outside their lines.
That's exactly the starting role. You take complete command. Now you've got to maintain that focus.
Like, there's too much animosity, too much heat going on in the middle. That's after they were eliminated,
this is the group right now. Thompson, then there's Robertson, and it's Gilmore in at the 5.
That don't fit well with anybody. On top of it, Jalen Brown wants his own team. That organization would never be turned over to Jalen Brown. They can take the post shot. He's the golden boy. He's the clean cut. He's the guy that's going to do it. He's the guy
Here's Rose. Rose can't hit.
This is what
I'm not going to say that. Guys like this value, you're on out. I get it. Things are unfair. You don't like that stuff. I hear that. Be a forward weapon. I'm not going to take you for $600. If I can get you the marketplace building, you don't want to be here. Then they can force my hand over the trade. I definitely ain't trading somewhere east because I know how conditions you are. I'm trying to be somewhere out west. I don't care if I do see me somewhere. I get enough of return on the investment. I have to have that before I can trade. So until we find that, the reputation and who is unless you don't want to get paid on this concept. But the difference is a lot of really big stuff. The Jalen Brown did that. It's a really big stuff. Now, the two players that he has been shocked, whatever the term, dangled for when the Celtics decided to trade, are Kevin Durant and Giannis. So these are two all-time greats and all that kind of thing. So I've had people say to me, look, he should understand that. He shouldn't feel some kind of way as a Celtics that's considered for that kind of player. You have a truly influence. How do you players react to being offered and trained and then have it not? The real problem was the Lord without a doubt with the list. When we never talk, he said you are behind the scenes. That's the important part. What's going on, going way out of getting on the Fox News because they had them hot. Because Ray Allen had a meeting with Jay James with Doctor, along with Tate Smith. And there was a conversation though, right after he did one of the and the word got back to one. And all of the things they don't fall for. And after that, I got hurt. And then after that, guess what? Ray Allen started coming off the field. And Ray Allen didn't like it. And all of a sudden, they have returned down more money to go join these boundaries, to join these ways of finance, right? So I'm going to
Paul dishes the road.
certain things that happen. Look how much
Great assist by Paul as that one goes in.
Slow start for him out of the gates, but you can feel that rhythm building.
Over the last 2 or 3 years, I think it's not even a
Excellent D that time from Robinson. The Magic trail by 5.
Now you got to say the Giannis has still been in his top 5 in the MVP conversation. I get it. The player perspective. But you're right. But
The Magic
you
have gone
give him
6-9 in the
up. What are you
second
looking
quarter,
for?
some good defense. And finished out by Robinson.
Now, CP3 knows every string to pull on the offensive end. What a pretty pass.
Here's Robertson.
You're not going to go ahead and trade him when you've got 3 years left on
To the
contract.
paint. Stolen by Robinson. Fast break, here they come. And Brooks, they pick up the pass.
Remove him unless they get back something that they
And
could
here's
enter
Robertson.
into that position.
And there's the exceeding call as they kick it across half court zone.
Those last 2 possessions, they're being way too loose with the ball.
And so a timeout by Jamal Mosley here. Looking for a breather, and he adjusted a foot or two.
What's Brad Stevens saying? Brad Stevens always put it in us. Brad Stevens always making a business decision that's going to benefit the organization. So he's welcome to the organization. Brad Stevens also comes to those guys to trust each other and the last of this role. He's got to do it right away. Right now, 2016. Never seen it right now this moment of time. For both of the players in the organization, it is the one
Distance comes in for James. And James Harden has subbed in for Robertson. Moses Malone. He's checked in for the
I will say
Magic.
this.
Wade comes in for
Details matter on something like this.
And
I
it's the
am
Magic's
curious how
ball.
Brad Stevens
They're on a
handles it.
13-6
Action
run.
Behavior Centers offers no cost, no wait list, 8 off 2 assessments